In the medical and nursing field now, it isn't permissible to talk about the hope we have in Jesus with our patients or clients. This was not always the case. During my early years of nursing, we could, but it took a while before I started. I began training in 1971. In the late 1970s, I was staffing on the care of the elderly and isolation ward. I worked nights on a 12-hour shift in a 4-on, 4-off pattern. At that time, the death rate was fairly high because many came in ill and elderly, so it was to be expected and it was part of the job. We cleared away and prepared the bed for the next admission. Then God spoke to me in a still, small voice. He said, "Many of these are entering hell and are not even praying for them." So I made a pact with him. I said, "If you'll keep them alive during my nights off and they're still here when I come back, I will talk to them about you." So I got this name for being the duty nurse that extended the lifespan of the patients, and I would talk about Jesus, barely understanding the gospel myself. At this time, my grandmother, miles away, had a stroke. I led her in the most garbled prayer imaginable in order to secure her a place in heaven with Jesus. Because when I had asked her if that was what she wanted, she very firmly had said yes. Whilst working on the A&E department, we had a road traffic accident victim brought to the doors of the department. She'd been killed outright. On looking to see who she was by checking her diary, I came across this entry that said, "Am I pregnant?" Well, of course, at that stage, it made no difference to her outcome. It never came to fruition in her life. When talking with newly diagnosed leukemic patients who had been given an option of 3 months intensive treatment that did not guarantee a cure, I brought into the conversation this road traffic accident victim. It served to validate her life a little and bring some redemption to the issue of her untimely death. Feeling threatened at the possibility of mortality around 3 months away, the patient would look for hope to the nurse who had time to listen while spending about 15 minutes at their bedside administering intravenous antibiotics. I would tell them about the road accident lady whose life was cut short with no notice. They have some notice. They may get better. They have time to put their affairs in order, to gain some measure of control in a situation they do not want and have no control over. Are their finances in order? Have they made power of attorney? Now is the time to make peace with old friends and family members. Have they made peace with God? A number did and had peace in their last days. One newly saved lady died, and I had the privilege of sitting with her as she passed. The room became golden. The night sister poked her head round the door to see if all was well, and she sensed the atmosphere too. In my fellowship around Christmas time, someone asked for prayer for her mum who was quite ill and had been newly admitted to hospital. No diagnosis had been given to the family at that time. In the prayer meeting, I prayed for the mum, the family, and also the nursing staff. I had the strangest feeling I was praying for myself. On returning to work after my night off, I realized the patient was the mother of the woman who had requested prayer. The mother rededicated her life to Christ after we had talked, and she came into peace and joy for the rest of her life that lasted a few months more. Another time, I sat with a lady who was having continuous epileptic fits that the medication was not yet controlling. In a rare, lucid moment, she told me she'd been to a beautiful place of butterflies, flowers, and smells. When talking to people these days about the afterlife, some tell me they don't believe in heaven and hell. I talk of these experiences that I have seen, and more of them. As night sister later on, I met an old man who was not at peace. I suggested the one who brings peace. Why not come back to him? As I left the ward, he was sitting on the edge of his bed with hands together and eyes closed. Another older man was not interested in trusting Jesus, but I asked him, what did he have to lose now? It wasn't as though he was going to make it with the birds anymore. He saw the sense of this and made peace with his Maker. Another time, my rounds took me to the bedside of an unconscious man whose treatment had been withdrawn because it was ineffective for him. Yet he was still alive after many days. I prayed privately that he would either come back to life or pass into death. Later on in the shift, I was informed that he had died. Upon entering the room to certify death, I was aware of two figures in the spirit at the end of his bed. One was the patient, the other was Jesus. And Jesus said to the patient, "She's one of ours." Later, after his body had been removed, I saw a Bible amongst his belongings. Wherever we are, if we are willing, God is able to bring opportunities to witness, but even more importantly, he's able to save people from a lost eternity if we would only follow his leading and open our mouths to talk of our eternal hope, who is Jesus.